Hello, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, we're back. We're better.
We're better than ever.
Yeah.
Long time no see.
Well, I've seen Sydney, but I haven't seen y'all, and I still can't see y'all.
Yeah, we can't see you, but we feel you in here. I'm pointing to my chest. We feel it down here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Sydney.
And I'm Jess.
And this is Malpractice Podcast.
And it is Malpractice in the morning.
It's the morning, and we took a break, and I loved it.
We said it last time we were going to go down to twice a month, and honestly, it's the best decision we've ever made. Just because life is happening, y'all.
It's a good time for us personally to take a break. Jessica is 1,000 months pregnant.
Yeah, seriously. I'm so over it.
And yeah, we had a baby shower. That was cool.
Yeah, Sydney wrangled cats and basically threw a baby shower for me and Michelle, and it was awesome.
It was great.
And I was so tired.
Yeah, I would not suggest doing a baby shower this far into a pregnancy because Jess was standing up and talking to people, and she was like,
Nope.
Everyone get away from me, I'm tired.
Yeah, everyone was like, how are you? And I'm like, I don't really want to be here. They were like, okay.
No, I don't know how to respond to that. But that was, it was good. Shout out to everyone who helped with that because there was so much help.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
It was lovely. Yeah,
it was awesome.
We took a break. I cut my hair off.
Yeah, Sydney has the best haircut.
It's the best
of life. It's so cute.
If you need a big change in your life, highly suggest just giving it a chop.
It's like Siobhan from what the fuck is that show?
Succession.
Michelle loves that show. Yeah. It's very that, and I love that, and I love her.
We've put it on our list to watch because you told us that you guys like it, and then somebody else was like, you guys would really like.
You guys would like it.
Succession.
You would like it.
It's on my list.
It's
of things to watch.
Crazy. I will say I'm not up to date. Michelle is current up to date. I'm
oh, is she?
Yeah, but listen. Michelle shows that you can't do anything else. You have to be watching it so you keep up with it. And I like shows that I can be doing 4 other things and I still get what the show is about.
Yeah, see, that's how Eric is. He's going to be distracted.
Yeah, I need that. So I watch stupid reality shows, which I love.
Sure.
Vanderpump Rules, are you joking? We can get into it right now.
Sometimes that's what you need out of life.
It's always what I need. Every Real Housewives, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Every reality TV show, I'll give it a try.
I'll play around with a show that has subtitles. I'll watch a Korean drama, and Eric is like,
oh no,
I can't do this.
I put subtitles on with English.
Oh no, same. I can't hear or understand what anyone is saying 0% of the time. But what else? There's a Elizabeth Holmes update.
I love this update.
Okay, so basically, for those of you who are not aware, go listen to our Theranos episodes if you want to hear about those. Essentially, she was sentenced to over 11 years actually, in jail, and she made an appeal to the judge because she wanted to stay out of jail until the rest of her appeals were done.
Yeah.
Which, I'm sure you do, but that's not how it works.
It's a no, right?
And so her appeal, it's a no, and her appeal would have kept her out of prison until then. The judge denied it. He basically said he found no legal reason that that would work.
He's like, just because you want to doesn't mean you can?
Correct.
Question mark?
Just because you want to stay out of jail.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you get to not go to jail for crimes that you committed.
Yeah, you should go bye-bye.
So she's starting her 11-year jail sentence on April the 27th. We're creeping
so
right
soon.
up on that. I know. And also woof to 11 years. She won't do 11 years, but woof in general.
But she'll do 6?
Probably 6, yeah. Or 5. She'll do some jail time for sure.
Isn't she going to prison in Texas?
I don't know. I just saw that she was going to federal prison.
Right.
I'm looking it up now.
Are we Googling? Where is Elizabeth
Jail.
Holmes jail?
Bryan, Texas. Yeah. Federal prison camp at Bryan, Texas.
Man, I just be knowing stuff for no reason, to be honest.
Specifically about Elizabeth Holmes, I feel like we both have encyclopedic knowledge of her life now.
Yeah. She's had her second baby, right?
Yeah. Which is crazy that she did that knowing she could go to whatever.
I think that was a very astute. I agree.
Thank you. It's like you're gonna miss the first at least 5 years of your child's life, and you already have one. I don't know. Whatever, do you. Clearly she will continue to do so.
She will. She does not give one single fuck
Not a
about
single
it.
one. Do you want to get into the episode?
I want to talk about Elizabeth Holmes, but yeah, that's all I really want. I just want to talk shit about her.
We've done that, and I want to continue to do so, and I'm fine with it.
So sometimes Sydney and I have the same conversation multiple times just because it's such a good conversation, and Elizabeth Holmes is one of those.
Elizabeth Holmes is one of the subjects that I really never get tired of.
Yeah.
I just want to understand what would motivate you, you know?
Yeah, no. We'll never know. I guess we'll never know.
Fascinating topic, nonetheless.
Yeah, we're here.
We have been getting DMs. It's like, hey, when's the next episode coming out? And I'm like, mind your business, it'll be out.
Yeah.
I love you. Thank you for your support, but mind your business.
Exactly. We will post when on Instagram.
Yeah.
The day or moment before.
Yeah.
Hey, it's coming out.
You will be getting 2 a month. We got you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into this if you want to.
Yeah, let's get into this one. And shout out to Sydney who did the research for this episode. I'm like super excited. It's so weird. And I love it.
It's a real weird episode. And
it's really weird.
Okay, so without further ado, we're going to talk about something that has recently popped back up in the news as a really weird health topic. And it's Havana Syndrome. Number one, Have you ever heard of this before we started doing this research?
No. Fuck no.
Okay.
Before you sent me the link, I had never heard of this.
Okay. So it was in the news recently, again, and I'm a little hesitant to call it by the name Havana Syndrome because it's going to get weird and a little political.
Well, if we love anything, we love to get political.
And weird.
And weird, yeah.
But I'm going to keep calling it that because if people have heard of this, it's a series of like anomalous health incidents that are being clustered together under that name. And so if people have heard of it, they've heard of it as Prob's Havana Syndrome.
The BBC has learned that there has been a significant increase in reports of health incidents affecting US spies and diplomats in recent months. Originally known as Havana Syndrome, officials say the condition has now spread beyond Cuba to every continent.
We've got new findings to report on the mysterious ailment called Havana Syndrome, affecting U.S. officials stationed abroad.
It's a mystery that has challenged the country's intelligence community for years.
1,500 reports of an unexplained illness known as the Havana Syndrome.
So what is it? Havana Syndrome is what they are now calling a series of mysterious ailments and unexplained medical symptoms that first began affecting U.S. diplomats who were stationed in Cuba's capital city, Havana, in 2016, and it has since impacted U.S. government officials all over the world.
Yikes.
We should go ahead and say that it is very weird, and it is still pretty much unexplained. There are theories, we'll get into those, but as of right now, no one knows exactly what's causing this, and you're not going to understand it by the end of this episode. It'll be kind of unsatisfying. Know that going into it.
Okay. Everyone, buckle up.
So it's a recent phenomenon, and this is how it started. At the end of 2016, I think it was like December 2016, about a year after the U.S. reopened its embassy in Cuba for the first time since the Cold War. In case people out there miss the Cold War vibe, it was like really weird. And they essentially cut ties with Cuba, whose regime had sided with
Russia.
Like communist Russia, right? In December of 2016, a CIA agent was stationed in Cuba. And we should say they were stationed there posed as a diplomat. So there were CIA agents there, but people...
Sneaky spies.
From the outside would not have known because they were sneaky spies.
Got it.
Right. So there's a CIA agent stationed in Cuba, specifically in Havana. This person heard a weird noise outside of the residence that they were staying in. After hearing this weird noise, that agent then started to complain of some really odd and unexplained symptoms. He was hearing what he described as like persistent grinding noises, ear pain, tinnitus, headaches, vertigo, nausea, nosebleeds, fatigue. So, like ear-related neurological symptoms
Yeah.
out of nowhere after hearing this weird grinding noise.
Most of those just sound like pregnancy, but love that for...
Well, your pregnancy specifically has been rough.
Yeah, it's been Ruffington. Yeah. What's also weird is that shortly after this agent started reporting these symptoms, others working in the U.S. and Canadian embassies in Havana started reporting very similar symptoms, sometimes to varying degrees, but regardless, they were all like similar. They were all aligned, right?
Yeah, in that symptom cluster.
Yeah. From 2016 to 2018, 26 different embassy workers stationed in Cuba described a specific event, starting with a strange grating noise coming from a specific direction. Some people describe feeling a pressure, vibration, or a sensation like what happens when you drive a car with one window partially rolled down inside their ears, which is a terrible feeling. I hate that feeling.
I hate it so. Like when you're driving or in the front seat and somebody in the back seat rolls their window down
Immediately. No.
and it feels like you can feel your eardrum going like beep boop beep boop beep inside your ear.
It's a no.
That's what they said they felt, but like all the time.
I hate that.
Yeah.
All of them said they were in their homes or hotel rooms when they heard the noise, and each event lasted between 20 seconds and 30 minutes, which is a very large gap, just so we're clear.
Huge, yeah.
One really interesting thing in all of this is that many of the embassy workers who experienced this lived with family members or were in hotels with people in the rooms next door, and those other people did not hear anything or experience any symptoms. So it was only affecting the embassy employees stationed there, and it was so weird. And maybe don't go there. This is a sign that people don't want you there. This is what I'm hearing.
Right. And so that's basically what the American government had to figure out is like, is someone doing this, right? Also, everyone who was affected at that time seemed to have worked in either the Canadian or American embassy. Most of them were American. They lived in a private residence home or one of two hotels. And they all seemed to have symptoms that were, like we said, in that ear-related or neurological cluster. And none of them were reporting symptoms that were way off of the others. Like, not one single person was like, oh, yeah, I also had a fever and my shoulder hurts.
Yeah. Or then I broke my leg.
Exactly. Exactly. Nope. It was like they're all having kind of the same symptoms. So that's weird. And some of those symptoms were really long lasting. In fact, one diplomat, CIA agent, we don't know which group this person belongs in, had hearing loss that was so severe he eventually had to start using a hearing aid. For some people, it was relatively minor, like went away over the course of like the next 3 months. And then for others, it was like a career-ending event, as in some of those agents were forced into retirement because of how serious their symptoms were. And at first, no one had any idea what could possibly have caused this in such a specific and targeted way. But because of the nature of the work they were doing there...
Yeah, we have to assume.
You have to look into it, right?
Yeah. So, obviously, the U.S. government is going to start poking around and trying to figure out what's going on, especially since American CIA agents and embassy workers are the ones falling ill.
Right.
And, like, America doesn't like to be on the defensive, let's be clear. Historically.
No.
And the U.S. State Department came out in 2017 and said they were going to get to the bottom of the issue. And after some investigating, they claimed that, quote, these diplomats were either attacked deliberately with the sound. It's not funny. Hold on, let me say that again. I'm only laughing because, like, it's not like you really found anything out.
Right.
Quote, these diplomats were either attacked deliberately with a sound device or were somehow exposed in a way that caused them to suffer these severe symptoms. That's not, like, a finding. That's obvious. Like, I don't even do any research that I could tell you that's what happened.
Well, maybe.
That's what happened. In my humble and uneducated opinion.
Okay. I thought that at the beginning, and then by the end of this, I feel like I was like, yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Oh, okay. And then the Associated Press got their hands on a recording, which we'll link in the show notes in case you want to hear it, which you do. This recording seemed to potentially be coming from some kind of sophisticated device that U.S. officials said created a sound wave that was actually physically injuring the embassy workers.
Yeah.
The FBI came out strong and initially claimed that it was an acoustic attack on U.S. personnel. So they went to the places where the embassy workers had been staying on the nights in question, did some investigating, and found nothing. Absolutely nada.
Yeah.
There was nothing to suggest that some super sophisticated sound device had actually been used to attack anyone. So I guess they're jumping to conclusions like I like to do, but I would jump to the same conclusion.
I feel like I would probably jump to the same conclusion. As the government, you probably should at least consider the possibility.
You should tiptoe to that conclusion a little bit.
Yeah.
Dance around it.
And because the symptoms that they were experiencing also included things like headaches, memory loss, speculation started to focus on the use of some kind of sonic weapon or potentially the use of something called infrasound. And I didn't know what that was. So I looked that up. It's a super low frequency sound outside of the range of human hearing. They said that whales and like rhinoceroses will use infrasound in their calls, which is cool.
Rhinos?
Rhinos, yeah.
That's cool.
They can communicate
Look
up
at
to like a
rhinos.
mile away across the savannah.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I looked it up because I found infrasound and I was like, well, let's figure out what's going on with these rhinos.
That's pretty cool.
Deep rabbit hole there. So it's below the range of human hearing, so it's lower than what we can hear. And several experts in the field have said there's no evidence to suggest that it could actually cause these kinds of symptoms. And if you could produce these kinds of symptoms, you would have to have like massive speakers pointed like directly at someone's face. So that's unlikely, because how would you even do that without anybody else noticing that you had these like massive speakers pointed at someone, right?
Yeah.
But allegedly, you can make people lose control of their bowels with infrasound.
That's cool. Terrifying.
Like you can make people poop themselves, allegedly,
Yikes.
for what it's worth. Basically, experts were like, we don't have the technology right now to do what you're claiming someone did to these diplomats.
Or at least those experts didn't have.
At least those experts don't know about it, right? So then, in an effort to keep things chill, the State Department also added that they didn't know who would have been responsible if it was an attack, and they're like, we're not pointing any fingers, but obviously they are, right?
Yeah. Well, duh.
They're pointing fingers partially at the Cuban government, but then also, if Cuba has ties with Russia, then they're like, maybe it's Russia.
We're not pointing any fingers, but we are going to say things in a way that leads you to believe we have an opinion.
Right. It's like saying no offense right before you say something wildly offensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know who did it, but
But we feel
you did it.
it could be these people. I don't know.
Yeah. So then because this was happening in 2017, 2018, and that was a time of general overreaction, I would say, in our government for certain things.
Wow, you said that so well.
Oh, thank you. While they were figuring it out, they did go ahead and kick out 2 Cuban diplomats out of the country. They were like, scoot.
Yeah, you gotta go.
And the Cuban government immediately responded, quote, by saying that it would never allow its soil to be used for actions against these diplomats and that it is willing to cooperate with the U.S. to clarify the incidents. It also called the decision to expel Cuban diplomats, quote, unjustified and baseless.
Well,
Which, okay.
if I was Cuba, I would have expelled all the U.S. diplomats.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Go back home and seek medical attention. Something's wrong with you. Yeah.
Tit for tat, right? Everybody's trying to figure this out without starting some kind of international incident, especially after relations with Cuba had been restored so recently post-Cold War. But this whole thing is weird as fuck. So Cuba maintains they didn't do anything, and then in 2018, they start fully cooperating with the U.S. government. They employ about 2,000 of their own scientists and law enforcement officers to conduct their own tests on, like, what could have happened. And then in early 2018, several U.S. diplomats in China began having symptoms that were consistent with what had come to be known as Havana Syndrome. And similar reports then started coming in from across the world, specifically that U.S. diplomats stationed in foreign countries were having these symptoms. And then while all of this is happening, some declassified documents come out through a Freedom of Information Act motion. And the public begins to realize that from the beginning, it seems like the State Department truly botched this entire investigation. because they had literally not even told Congress about what was happening until the media picked up and started reporting it.
Oh.
So when it came out to the general public, Congress people are like picking up their newspapers in the morning and they're hearing about it with the rest of the public.
Oh, and Congress was probably so mad.
Yeah, I'm sure they were like, hey, what the fuck? You have to tell us stuff.
Yeah, you have to tell us stuff so that we know things.
But there was a lot of secrecy, and the CIA was involved, and they were like, don't compromise our agents, which is fair, right? If you're a CIA agent, they don't want anyone to know that you're a CIA agent, I think. The FBI was in on it. So it was like massive secrecy. Everybody was doing their own investigation and coming up with their own findings, and then no one was communicating with each other.
Got it. Well, that sounds like our government.
It really does.
Now, by this point, reports of Havana Syndrome had come from people stationed all over the place, and as many as 200 people have reported experiencing it. Basically, all of them are American diplomats, CIA agents, State Department or Defense Department employees. So they're, like, important.
Yeah.
There have also been around 24 cases among Canadian officials. So, also not good. Then the government asked scientists at the University of Pennsylvania to do a study where they collected data and MRI scans from 21 of the affected diplomats. They published the results in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and the results were somewhat shocking at the time. They described a, quote, new syndrome in the diplomats that resembles persistent concussion, which is crazy and terrifying.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about traumatic brain injury, like Syd does, you're like, oh, that's not good.
It's super scary. And the idea that someone could like point a beam of sound at you and cause a concussion was a new and frankly terrifying thought.
That's so dangerous. Yeah.
It's super dangerous. And people are like, well, we don't know of a weapon that could do that. So if somebody has that technology, they're scary.
That's bad, yeah.
Symptoms range from dizziness, headaches, and memory loss to cognitive impairment so severe that some victims say they can no longer work.
Cheryl Cruz speaking out for the first time about how her 20-year State Department career was cut short by a mysterious illness, the Havana Syndrome.
I started with the vertigo and the tinnitus and brain fog. I could actually feel my brain shutting down, like everything kind of went black.
She is among more than 200 State Department personnel and CIA officers afflicted around the world.
So, in this study, all but 3 of the participants had completely normal MRI scans, but 95% of the patients reported persistent symptoms that lasted longer than 3 months, which is incredibly weird. So, let's talk about the one thing that has been driving me crazy since I first started researching this topic. Does the technology even exist to give someone a concussion with sound? As it turns out, maybe.
It sounds like it does.
It does in theory. I think in practice, they don't know how to do it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that the sound recording that we talked about earlier, Cuban scientists and a group of biologists from the University of California, Berkeley. I don't know why I said it like that. I was like,
From
whatever.
the university.
University. They said conclusively that sound recording was crickets.
Okay.
And that sounds crazy.
Berkeley, get it together. Just kidding. I don't know.
I mean, I don't fucking know anything about a cricket.
Not a sound scientist, for sure.
Possibly crickets. So this specific breed of crickets is called Indies short-tailed crickets. They make a sound during their calling song that sounds like your ears are being attacked. Like, no lie, when you listen to it, it's crazy.
In the winter of 2016, diplomats Kate Husband and Doug Ferguson were working at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba. Their nights at home interrupted by a piercing noise coming from their backyard.
I'll just play it for you so you can hear.
It was a lot worse earlier. It was persistent, kind of at the same level all the time. Very, very loud. It's nothing you could sit with.
The grinding, scraping sound that people heard that sounds frankly like metallic, it couldn't have been the cause of their ailments because it was literally just crickets. Like 2 separate scientific groups have said that's crickets, friend.
But maybe it was crickets and they were covering up.
Yeah, that's totally possible. So Other people have suggested that it was possibly caused by the diplomats' exposure to pesticides, since Cuba was in an area that was heavily plagued by the Zika virus. If you rewind your mental tape, everybody remembers Zika. And they were heavily using a pesticide that is known to belong to a neurotoxic group called organophosphates as an anti-Zika mosquito population control measure. That being said, I feel like this one is basically out too, since it was only diplomats experiencing the Havana Syndrome, not other people in the Cuban population.
Yeah.
And they started experiencing it in other places that weren't using that type of pesticide. Like one of them was right outside of Washington, D.C. Like they're not using pesticides. They're of this caliber, probably. So experts in infrasound and ultrasound have basically ruled out both as a possibility, at least with the technology that we're aware of right now. So when the State Department got the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, or NASEM, to get in on this action, they were kind of behind the 8 ball because when the diplomats had originally gone in for medical treatment, no one knew that it was a mystery to be solved. No one was working to try and figure out what had caused this. There was no big investigation.
They were just treating what was happening.
Exactly. Those doctors were like, oh, you have tinnitus? That's crazy. Let's get you something for like an ear infection, right?
Yeah.
The NASEM group couldn't come up with anything definitive, but they came out and said it is very possible that a directed, pulsed microwave energy blast could theoretically have caused these symptoms, even if we don't have the technology right now. They said that could be possible. And directed and pulsed is like very specific because it's like, that means somebody did it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this theory. Agreed.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
But they were struggling from the beginning because some serious time had passed since these people first started experiencing their symptoms.
Yeah.
Like 3+ years. And now they're being asked to study it. And it's like, that harms the integrity of what you can actually get from the study, right? Like you need like pronto information.
Right. On top of the secrecy surrounding like HIPAA, you can't get access to patient data, and some of these people are CIA agents, so there's an extra layer of...
Right. They don't even exist.
Right. They're ghosts.
Yeah. They've never been here, never heard of her.
Correct.
But they said essentially something called the Fry effect is what occurs when pulsed microwaves are pointed at you.
Mm-hmm.
You basically hear a clicking and popping sound and feel pressure, which is what a lot of these original diplomats described in their initial descriptions. So that actually tracks, but not everyone bought this story.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of scientists were basically like, no way, that's not happening. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I will say I read the papers going like back and forth. Like one paper would be published like this is possible, and then another paper would be like those people are clowns. It got really catty, to be honest, in the scientific community, which I personally kind of like to see. Scientists were going back and forth like, absolutely not, homie. You need to take that back. And the National Academy of Sciences was like, shut up, yes, huh? It is possible. Shut up.
Yeah.
But you need a lot of different people who have expertise in different areas to weigh in on this. And it seems to me like the NAS or NASEM didn't get the right people on the panel. And there was all of this like political shit. Politicians were getting in on it. CIA hidden stuff. Media stories coming out. Like it was a big mess from the jump.
Yeah. And on top of this, it was all happening when Trump was the president.
Mm-hmm.
And he was such a clown. And that is not an opinion, that's a fact, that his national security advisor, John Bolton, decided not to tell him about what was going on.
Yeah.
Literally because of the clown shit that he would do. Since one possibility in the early days of this investigation was that Russia could have been to blame, and they felt that they couldn't count on him to back them up in that case because he wanted to be besties with Russia, we all know.
Yeah.
This is not being overly political. This is literally what John Bolton said.
Yeah.
But also, I will be overly political sometimes.
At the drop of a
but
hat.
Not now. I'm just being regularly political at this point.
But this is like John Bolton literally came out and was like, we decided not to tell him because we didn't know how he would handle it.
Yeah, he is a wild card, and we can't tell him stuff.
Mad dog off the leash. Yeah.
So all of this was an effort, obviously, to determine whether a hostile foreign power was attacking American embassy workers, which, spoiler alert, a report came out last week from the global intelligence community that included 7 different agencies that there's no evidence to support this theory at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But who needs evidence to support a theory anyway? We love it.
I mean,
who?
Who?
After studying over 1,000 cases, the CIA is saying that, quote, most cases could be explained by natural causes, such as environmental causes, undiagnosed medical conditions, or stress, although it couldn't rule out foreign involvement in approximately 24 cases, and many of those were from Havana.
Yeah.
So basically they were like, we don't know.
In a comprehensive review, investigators examined more than 1,500 reported cases. The new intelligence report concluded it's very unlikely a foreign adversary played a role, and there is no credible evidence that a foreign adversary has a weapon.
Members of the intelligence community participating in this found it, quote, very unlikely a foreign adversary was responsible, very unlikely a weapon or any device purposely or accidentally caused the symptoms.
It may or may not have been like an acoustic attack. It can't be conclusively ruled out. But they don't have any evidence to support that it was, essentially. But now I want to talk about one of the most popular theories, and this is my personal favorite, and that is psychogenic illness. There are lots of really interesting cases of mass psychogenic illness that we absolutely should cover one day. And I'm going to give you a few examples because I love to learn about these. One of them is like a dancing mania that happened in a European monastery during the Middle Ages. Like,
Okay.
the nuns there could not stop dancing for like days at a time.
Well, who among us hasn't had that moment?
Had a dancing epidemic. Okay.
That's kind of cool. If you're going to have an epidemic,
A dancing one is the best. I would think.
Agreed.
There was a laughter epidemic that took over a village in Tanzania in 1962. There was one in 1998 called the East Java Ninja Scare, where people in Java, Indonesia became convinced as a group that their religious leaders were being hunted down by ninjas.
Mm-hmm.
I swear that these are all real, and they're super interesting health incidents that belong to a class called psychogenic illnesses or functional neurological disorders, or FNDs. Sometimes people call them mass hysteria or conversion disorder. I don't love the term mass hysteria as a medical terminology because, number one, it's super weird and gendered, as we know historically. And it also sounds kind of fucked up, like you're basically saying that people are freaking out for no reason, which is not what this is. Some scientists have suggested that this is the possible cause of the Havana Syndrome outbreak. Robert Bartholomew, a medical sociologist who specializes in mass psychogenic illness, classified this as a condition characterized by the rapid spread of symptoms within a cohesive social group without an organic cause.
That's terrifying. That's so scary.
Yes, it is. Something happens, one person starts to experience symptoms, maybe they tell the other people what they're experiencing, and it spreads throughout a social group. He also noted that the outbreaks of this condition are often incubated in atmospheres of anxiety, such as, I don't know, working for the CIA. Like, that's a high-stress job, I would imagine.
Right. I'm stressed. And I don't have that job.
I'm stressed for them. Yeah. Especially if you have a medical condition and you're like, I got to go tell people that I'm here as a US diplomat, and you're potentially like jeopardizing spilling your details as a CIA agent. Anyway.
Yeah, no. It's not good. The stress is real.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Some people, including that 2019 JAMA report, the Journal of the American Medical Association report, have disputed this, and some of the affected diplomats have said that they feel like calling it a psychogenic illness feels invalidating. That's like a quote from them. But I think that's at least partially because people really lack an understanding of what FNDs can really involve. There was this one case that happened, I think, in Oklahoma in 2017, and a group of high school students all collectively became completely paralyzed after experiencing a collective FND. And it was so medically convincing that everyone in the town thought they had been exposed to some kind of toxin or possibly mold within the school. Like, these people were paralyzed. So FNDs can also be called conversion disorder, which is a condition in which a person experiences physical or sensory problems such as paralysis, numbness, blindness, deafness, seizures, with no underlying neurologic pathology. So there's no reason
for that to have happened
that can be found on like a medical scan, but your brain basically gets into a loop that it can't get out of.
That's scary.
It kind of goes back for me to what we talked about in the placebo episode. Your mind is super powerful, and it can make you experience symptoms like the ones that we are describing that these employees felt. I think for me, this is an especially strong case because allegedly the first person to report the symptoms described it to another employee. And when they described it, they said they were almost sure that there had been some kind of sonic attack because they heard the cricket sound. And then they fully described their symptoms. And then a report went out to these employees that said, hey, watch out for the sound and these symptoms.
Oh, and then people are like, oh, I heard it too.
Oh, I heard that sound and now I have the same symptoms. And so to me, I think that's a strong case. And you can't prove that this isn't the reason for it, right? So in 2021, the CDC released a new report where they basically said they developed a case definition of Havana Syndrome consisting of a biphasic or two-stage syndrome. The first phase of symptoms, which happen after some kind of auditory or sensory event, consist of one or more of the following symptoms: head pressure, disorientation, nausea, headache, vestibular disturbance, that ear wabba wabba sound, or auditory or visual that's the technical definition.
Yeah.
By the way. The second phase of symptoms occur sometimes later, and they consist of cognitive deficits, vestibular disturbances, or both. The report concluded of the 95 persons whose medical records the CDC evaluated, 15 had illnesses that met the criteria for a presumptive case definition. The CDC classified 31 others as possible cases and the remaining 49 as not likely to be a case of Havana Syndrome. The CDC concluded the evaluations conducted thus far have not identified a mechanism of injury, process of exposure, effective treatment, or mitigating factor for the unexplained cluster of symptoms experienced by those stationed in Havana. So they're like, officially, I don't know.
Yeah, none of this is conclusive.
Right.
Which is awesome.
And scary.
Which is awesome, and by awesome I mean terrible.
Horrifying.
We still don't know exactly what caused the first cases of Havana Syndrome, and we don't know what's responsible for the nearly 2,000 cases that have occurred since. Many of them have been resolved, and lots of them were linked to existing medical conditions, but that's still like kind of weird and scary.
Yeah.
But dozens of former U.S. officials are still suffering from chronic ailments that have no explanation, and that is my least favorite type of ailment, the one with no
Me too.
explanation.
Yeah. It's scary.
It's scary. Attorney Mark Syd, who's representing more than 24 clients in these cases, said he's had access to some classified information and believes key information has yet to come out. Ooh, we love that. Quote, I can say the U.S. government has a lot more information than what it is publicly revealing today, and that is where a lot of the unanswered questions arise from. Ooh, so
right.
While you've probably seen more about this condition in the news lately, hopefully we will eventually know what actually caused the onset of what we know now as Havana Syndrome.
Yeah, but for now, that's all we know about that.
Which feels like not very much, but that's what we know.
That's all we got.
It's actually a lot.
It's a lot, but that's really all there is.
Well, that's awesome.
So we hope you liked this episode.
Agreed. So great job, Sydney. You're the best.
Thank you.
Better than all the rest for this. We can only put that amount of that song in there.
Correct.
For this episode, we are going to do another episode in April, so don't stress. We are going to take off May for the babe.
Because Jessica is giving birth.
So May is... Sorry, we won't even be putting out 2 episodes. We'll barely be alive.
Yeah, be cool about it.
But June, we're back.
Back in action.
We're back and we're better.
Yeah.
So just to give you a heads up, and we'll tell you the next episode too. We'll remind everyone.
Right.
Just so you don't get mad. We'll be back, besties.
And you can stay up to date with all of our, posting schedule and everything like that by following us on social media.
Yeah. And you can send us recommendations on said social media. Malpractice Podcast on Instagram, or you can email us, malpracticepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us while we get our life together.
Yeah, thank you.
And don't forget to leave us a review wherever you like to listen.
Yeah.
We love it, and we love you.
Yeah.
And don't forget, malpractice makes perfect. Bye.